The desert wind carried dust through the dying town like ghosts searching for unfinished business. By sundown, the streets of Black Hollow usually emptied. Folks locked their doors early there. Nobody trusted the night, and nobody trusted each other. The town sat between dry mountains and endless plains, surviving on cattle, whiskey, and fear. At the far end of the street stood a weather-beaten saloon with crooked doors and broken lanterns. Inside, smoke drifted through the air while tired men drowned memories in cheap liquor. And sitting alone near the back wall was the most feared outlaw in 3 territories, Elias Crow. People said he once robbed a train carrying army gold without firing a single shot. Others claimed he escaped a hanging in New Mexico after killing 3 bounty hunters with his bare hands. Most of the stories were lies, but enough of them were true. Elias sat with his hat low over his eyes, a glass of whiskey untouched in front of him. His revolver rested on the table beside his hand. Nobody dared look at him for long. He liked it that way. The piano player stopped playing the moment the saloon doors burst open. A woman stumbled inside. Her dress was torn from riding hard through the desert. Dirt covered her face, and strands of dark hair clung to her cheeks. In her arms, she carried a little boy no older than 6. The child was unconscious. The woman looked around the saloon desperately, panic in her eyes. Then she saw Elias. Every man in the room watched as she crossed the floor straight toward the outlaw. Nobody dared approach. Elias slowly lifted his eyes. The woman stopped at his table. "Please," she whispered. Elias said nothing. Her breathing shook. "Please, they're coming." Still silence, the saloon keeper quietly backed away. The woman lowered the child carefully into the chair beside Elias. "I heard stories about you," she said. "They say you don't fear anybody." "That depends who's asking." Her eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. "My name is Clara Bennett. My husband was a doctor." Elias leaned back slightly. "Was? They killed him 3 nights ago." The room went still. Elias finally picked up his whiskey and took a slow drink. "Sounds like your problem, not mine." Clara swallowed hard. "They want my son." Elias looked at the child for the first time. Small, thin, pale from exhaustion, a bruise darkened one side of the boy's face. "What for?" Elias asked. "They think he saw something." "And did he?" Clara hesitated. That was answer enough. Outside, horses thundered into town. Every man in the saloon turned toward the windows. Clara's face drained of color. "They found us." Elias cursed quietly. The riders stopped outside. 6 men, armed, dangerous. Their leader stepped down from his horse wearing a long black coat and silver spurs. Dashall Raymond Holt. Once, Holt had been law in Black Hollow. Now he ruled the town through fear. Elias knew him well. Years ago, Holt had betrayed him during a robbery near the Arizona border. Left him bleeding in the desert for dead. Elias never forgot faces. The saloon doors opened slowly. Dashall. Holt entered with 2 deputies behind him. His cold eyes swept across the room until they landed on Clara. "Well now," Holt said calmly, "there you are." Clara stepped protectively in front of her son. "You already killed my husband." Holt removed his gloves carefully. "Your husband should minded his business." The little boy stirred weakly in the chair. Holt noticed. "So the boy's alive." Elias watched quietly. Holt's eyes shifted toward him. For a brief moment, neither man spoke. Recognition settled between them. "Crow," Holt muttered. "Holt. You're a long way from the border." Still breathing, though, several men in the saloon quietly moved away from the tables. Everyone could feel the danger building. Holt smiled faintly. "Careful. Last time your mouth got you shot." Elias leaned back in his chair. "And last time you ran before finishing the job." The tension tightened like a rope ready to snap. Then Clara spoke. "Please," she whispered to Elias, "help us." Elias stared into his whiskey. He had spent years surviving alone. No family, no loyalty, no causes worth dying for. That life kept a man alive. Helping strangers got men buried. But the boy looked barely conscious. And Holt was the kind of man Elias hated most. Men who wore badges while acting like killers. Holt stepped forward. "Hand over the kid," he said. "This doesn't concern you." Elias slowly stood. Chairs scraped across the saloon floor as men backed away. "Looks like it concerns me now." Holt's deputies reached for their guns. Elias moved first. His revolver flashed from leather. 2 shots exploded through the saloon. Both deputies dropped instantly. Screams erupted. Men dove beneath tables. Holt fired back, shattering bottles behind the bar. Elias flipped a table sideways as bullets tore through wood. "Move!" he shouted to Clara. She grabbed her son. The saloon erupted into chaos. Elias fired again. Holt barely ducked behind a support beam. "Kill him!" Holt roared toward the men outside. Gunfire blasted through windows. Glass exploded everywhere. Elias grabbed Clara and shoved her toward the back exit. "Can you ride?" "Yes." "Then don't stop riding." They burst through the rear doors into the alley. 3 horses waited near the stable. Elias mounted quickly while Clara struggled to climb up with her son. Shots rang out behind them. A bullet struck Elias's shoulder. He gritted his teeth. "Go!" The horses charged into the desert night. Behind them, Black Hollow disappeared beneath clouds of dust and gunfire. For hours, they rode beneath cold moonlight. The little boy remained silent in Clara's arms. Just before dawn, Elias led them into a narrow canyon hidden between jagged cliffs. An old abandoned miner's cabin rested there. Nobody else knew about it. At least, nobody still alive. Clara climbed down shakily. Elias nearly fell when he dismounted. Blood soaked through his coat. "You're hurt," Clara said. "I noticed." Inside the cabin, Elias collapsed into a chair while Clara cleaned the bullet wound. The outlaw barely flinched. The boy finally opened his eyes. He looked around fearfully. "It's okay," Clara whispered. "We're safe." The child stared at Elias. "Is he a bad man?" Elias almost laughed. Clara hesitated. "He's helping us." The boy nodded slowly. "My name's Samuel," he whispered. Elias tipped his hat slightly. "Elias." Samuel looked exhausted beyond his years. Children shouldn't know fear like that, yet Elias recognized the look in the boy's eyes. He'd seen it before. In mirrors. Later that night, while Samuel slept near the fireplace, Clara finally told the truth. Her husband had treated injured men secretly brought to his clinic by Marshall Holt outlaws. Gunmen killers. At first, Dr. Bennett believed Holt was using them as informants. Then one night, he overheard too much. Holt and his men had been robbing supply convoys for months while blaming the attacks on roaming gangs. Anyone who learned the truth disappeared. Dr. Bennett planned to leave town with evidence, but Holt found out. "They came after midnight," Clara whispered. "Samuel saw everything." Elias remained silent. "They killed my husband in front of us." Her voice cracked. "They thought Samuel heard where the documents were hidden." "And did he?" Elias asked. Clara looked toward her sleeping son. "Yes." "Where?" "I don't know. My husband only told Samuel." Elias cursed under his breath. "So Holt won't stop hunting you." No outside, wind whistled through the canyon. Clara looked at Elias carefully. "Why are you helping us?" Elias stared into the fire. For a long moment he said nothing. Then, quietly, "Had a family once." Clara looked surprised. Elias rarely spoke about the past. "My wife died during a winter fever years ago," he said. "My daughter, too." Silence filled the cabin. "After that," Elias continued, Nothing seemed worth caring about. Clara saw pain buried beneath the outlaw's hardened face. Not evil. Pain. The next morning, Elias prepared the horses. "We head north," he said. "There's a railroad station near Silver Creek. You get on a train and disappear." "What about you?" Clara asked. "I've got unfinished business." Samuel tugged lightly on Elias's coat. "I know where Father hid the papers." Both adults looked down at him. The boy swallowed nervously. "In the church," Elias frowned. "Black Hollow Church?" Samuel nodded. "He hid them inside the bell tower." Clara knelt beside her son. "You should have told me earlier." "I was scared." Elias looked toward the canyon entrance. Holt would never stop hunting them now. Those papers could destroy him, which meant Holt would kill every witness before allowing that. "We changed plans," Elias said. Clara stared at him. "You can't go back there. Don't have much choice. That town's full of Holt's men." Elias loaded fresh rounds into his revolver. "Then I guess it'll be crowded." By nightfall, they reached the hills overlooking Black Hollow. The town glowed faintly beneath lantern light. Armed men patrolled the streets. Holt expected them to return. Elias studied the town carefully. "Stay hidden near the cemetery," he told Clara. "If I'm not back within an hour, leave. What if they catch you?" Elias smirked faintly. "Wouldn't be the first time." He disappeared into the darkness. Black Hollow felt quieter than before. Fear did that to towns. Elias moved between alleys like a shadow. 2 guards stood outside the church. Poor positioning, poor awareness, amateurs. Elias slipped behind the first man and struck him unconscious with the grip of his revolver. The second guard turned too late. Elias grabbed him, slammed him against the wall, and covered his mouth. "Where's Holt?" Elias whispered. "The hotel." Elias knocked him cold, then entered the church. Moonlight filtered through stained glass windows. Dust floated through silence. He climbed the narrow stairs toward the bell tower. Halfway up, floorboards creaked. Elias froze. A shotgun clicked behind him. "Thought you might come back." Holt. Elias slowly turned. Marshal Holt stood on the stairs below with a shotgun aimed directly at him. "You always were predictable," Holt said. Elias smiled slightly. "And you always talked too much." Holt's eyes darkened. "You should have died years ago. Maybe, but tonight you will." Holt stepped closer. "You know what your problem is, Crow?" Elias shrugged. "Hard to count them all. You keep pretending you're different from men like me." The shotgun remained steady. "But we both know the truth." Holt's voice lowered. "You kill for money. I kill for power. Either way, men die." Elias' face hardened. "Difference is, I never lied about what I was." Holt fired. Elias dove sideways. The blast shattered the stair railing. Both men crashed into the bell tower platform. The shotgun skidded away. Holt tackled Elias. They slammed into wooden beams, trading brutal punches. Holt was larger, stronger, but Elias fought like a man who had survived too many years to die easily. Holt grabbed a knife from his belt. The blade sliced across Elias's arm. Elias slammed Holt against the bell support. The entire tower shook. Below, townspeople began gathering outside. Holt drove the knife toward Elias's throat. Elias caught Holt's wrist inches away. Both men strained violently. Then Samuel's voice echoed from below. "Mr. Crow!" Holt glanced downward instinctively. That mistake cost him. Elias smashed Holt's hand against the beam. The knife fell. Elias grabbed it first. For a moment, both men froze. Years of hatred stood between them. Holt stared at the blade. "You won't do it," he sneered. Elias remembered his wife, his daughter. The people Holt murdered. The child waiting below. Then Elias drove the knife forward. Holt gasped. The marshal stumbled backward toward the broken railing. Shock crossed his face. Then the rotten wood collapsed beneath him. Holt fell from the bell tower. The crowd below scattered as his body crashed onto the church steps. Silence consumed the town. Elias stood breathing heavily above them. Blood ran down his arm. His chest rose and fell slowly. Then he noticed movement below. More gunmen. Holt's remaining men surrounded the church, dozens. One shouted upward, "Throw down your weapons!" Elias looked around. No escape. Then a rifle shot echoed through town. One of the gunmen collapsed. Clara stood near the cemetery, with a rifle in shaking hands. Chaos erupted. Gunfire exploded across the street. Elias sprinted downstairs. Bullets tore through church walls. He burst through the front doors, firing both revolvers. Two men dropped. Samuel hid behind a stone wall, while Clara reloaded desperately. "Move!" Elias shouted. They ran through the graveyard under heavy fire. Headstones shattered around them. A bullet struck Clara in the side. She cried out and fell. Samuel screamed. Elias turned and fired repeatedly until the gunman ducked for cover. Then he lifted Clara into his arms. "We have to go," she whispered painfully. Blood soaked through her dress. They reached the horses barely ahead of the pursuing riders. Elias helped Samuel climb up. Then he mounted with Clara, barely conscious, behind him. The horses thundered into the night. The chase lasted until dawn, through canyons, across rivers, over cliffs, but Holt's men slowly fell behind. By sunrise, only silence followed them. They stopped near an abandoned railroad bridge. Clara's condition worsened. Elias knew the truth the moment he saw the blood. She wasn't going to survive. Samuel held her hand tightly. "Mom?" Clara smiled weakly. "It's all right, sweetheart." Tears rolled down the boy's face. "No." She looked toward Elias. For the first time, the outlaw saw fear in her eyes, not for herself, for her son. "Promise me," she whispered. Elias said nothing. "Please." Samuel clung to her. "I don't want you to go." Clara touched his face gently. "You're brave," she whispered. "Just like your father." Then she looked at Elias again. "Save him." The outlaw swallowed hard. He had spent years avoiding promises. Promises buried men. But Samuel looked terrified, alone. Exactly how Elias once felt. Slowly, he nodded. "I'll protect him." Clara closed her eyes. A final breath escaped her lips. Then she was gone. The world became very quiet. Samuel cried into Elias's coat, while the outlaw stared across the empty desert. For the first time in years, Elias felt something heavier than guilt. Responsibility. 3 days later, they reached Silver Creek. The town bustled with railroad workers and travelers. News of Marshall Holt's death had already spread. Most called Elias Crow a murderer. Some called him a hero. He didn't care. At the station, Samuel sat beside him, holding a small wooden toy horse. "You leaving?" the boy asked. Elias looked toward the tracks. A train whistles echoed in the distance. For years, he'd lived like a ghost. No roots, no purpose. Just surviving one gunfight at a time. But somewhere between Black Hollow and this station, something changed. Maybe Clara saw it before he did. Maybe broken men sometimes needed someone to save too. Elias looked down at Samuel. "You ever ride a horse before all this?" Samuel shook his head. "No." A faint smile crossed Elias's face. "Well," he said, standing slowly, "guess we better fix that." The boy stared up at him. "You mean you're staying?" Elias adjusted his hat. "Looks like you're stuck with me, kid." For the first time since his father died, Samuel smiled. A real smile. The train arrived in a cloud of steam. Passengers stepped off. Others climbed aboard. Life moved on like it always did. Elias Crow stood beside the child he never expected to protect. An outlaw feared across the frontier. A boy with nobody left. Two souls carrying ghosts through the Wild West together. And somewhere beyond the endless horizon, beneath burning sunsets and open skies, the legend of Elias Crow became something different. Not the fastest gun, not the deadliest outlaw, but the man who saved a child when nobody else would. And in the Wild West, that kind of story lived forever.